Hey, welcome to our show here tonight. Welcome to We'll Sing and We'll Shout with your host, Steve Hansen. We also have our special guest, Cheryl Hansen, on with us here tonight. Do you want to say hi here, Cheryl?
Hello, everybody. Hope you had a good Sabbath day. I did.
Yeah, yeah, so did I. We had a really nice program here locally, a lot of really good music. We just had the one meeting, which was great. I think that was kind of a church-wide thing.
Yeah.
So that all worked out really well. Um, I wanted to, I really like honesty and integrity when it comes to my show. And so I wanted to kind of share what happened to me last night. Um, Let me get rid of a couple things we don't need on there. Okay. So last night I was telling everybody about, my wonderful fasting and how awesome I am and kind of bragging that all up.
Did you eat the
But
cheeseburger?
well, let me share my story here. So, I had played basketball the last two nights in a row. I played 2 hours Thursday night at the church, and then I was at the rec center and played another 2 hours Friday night. Or am I getting that wrong? Let's see. It was Thursday night that I played at the church with the guys, and then was it Friday? Yeah, it was Friday night that I played with the guys at the rec center. And then Saturday morning, I got up and worked out really hard at the rec center with the weights and played a little basketball. So I had put a lot of work into this body in the last, recent couple of days. So when I got done with that thing last night, I went upstairs and it was like a quarter after 9 by the time I watched my replay and took some notes and whatever. And so I'm telling Heidi, I'm just like, Heidi, I am so hungry. I'm just so hungry. I feel like if I don't eat, my body's going to just start eating the flesh off my bones. And I'm really thinking about going and getting a cheeseburger. And so we talked for a little bit, and she said, "Well, you do whatever you want, but I'm done. I'm already starting my fast, and I'm not eating. But you do whatever you want." So so I decided to listen to my body, which is something I try not to do because my body's not really very smart. But I decided to listen to my body and break my fast last night. And it was the first time that I had done this in quite some time here. But I ate some leftovers, and then Victoria works at this Thai restaurant over in Orem here nearby. I think I'm saying that right. And they have sushi there. So we thought, hey, what if we get a hold of Victoria? She'll be finishing up work here pretty soon. She can bring some sushi home. And so we were going to put this order together, and we called in to place the order, and they're like, "Oh, we already closed." I mean, it was just a little after 9, and they were supposed to close at 9:30, but they decided that they were already closed and they didn't want our order. So that didn't work out. So um, Kenny likes sushi, so we decided to go over to the local grocery store here, Days, and get some sushi there. Obviously, grocery store sushi is not as good as restaurant fresh sushi, but it's still sushi. So we went over there. The sushi selection was not looking very good, but he picked out the Utah roll. So you can imagine how good the Utah roll is when it comes to sushi. but uh, but that's what the boy picked out. But while we were there, the donuts were looking pretty good. So Kenny and I both picked up a donut. We picked up a few other things, including a half gallon of ice cream. So kind of came home from the grocery store, nailed a donut, ate some sushi, had some ice cream, miscellaneous other things. I kind of had a number of different snacks for a meal, and I totally blew up my fast last night. So I just wanted full disclosure on that. Steve does, totally screw up sometimes, and I know it was because of the big calorie deficit that I had created and the energy deficit that I had created with all that basketball and all that exercise. Um, what's interesting is when you do something like that. This morning I woke up and I was so much hungrier and wanting to eat again than I would most other mornings when I'm fasting. And it's because when you eat like that, you send your insulin way up, you send the glucose in your bloodstream way up. And that insulin, it quells your GLP-1. And that signal that, hey, I'm satisfied, I'm full, I have enough energy is not getting through. And so it's the hormone insulin that says, hey, eat some more. And that's exactly what I felt this morning. I mean, it was a little bit of a battle for me to not eat before I went to church today. I was able to drink my unamate and be fine, but it was a lot stronger than it is on most mornings. And then I came home from church and ate, and we had a what did we have? We had a cheeseburger. We had cheeseburgers for lunch today. We had my friend Bernie over, who used to work with me, and we had cheeseburgers and some other things. But I did start my fast today at I think it was 4 o'clock, and I'm fasting now and I'm feeling fine. But I did kind of totally blow up my fast last night, so I just wanted to give full disclosure to that and just admit that Steve screws up sometimes. You have any thoughts on that, Cheryl? You want to
Well,
throw
I
any?
just have a funny story about something that happened to me. It was when we lived in Bellevue in 2018 in that blue Victorian on Main Street.
Yeah.
I got my knee replaced. And so I was stuck at home for like weeks because I was recovering and I wasn't allowed to drive and I was on medicine, painkillers, and such. And so Martin left for work one day and I'm like, I have got to get out of this house. So I drove down to the dollar store, which just closed in Bellevue recently, unfortunately. But I went into the dollar store and everything looked good to me. So I just started putting all this stuff in my car. And I am on these pain drugs, so I'm not quite all there. So I put all this stuff in my car, Hostess ho-hos and Reese's peanut butter cups, and I mean all sorts of junk. And so Martin comes home from work, and I'm sitting on the couch, and I have my leg up, and I am just surrounded with all these treats and snacks and stuff. He comes in and he just looks at me like, "Did you go somewhere?" Yeah, I went to the dollar store. And then he takes a picture of me sitting there with all this crap around me and sends it to my daughter. He sent it to Allison because he's like, look what your mother has done. So we still laugh about that time because I was so out of control that day. I just bought, I can't even imagine how much crap I had bought, but it was super funny because when you're sitting in the house by yourself, people bring you food. You don't get the stuff you want to eat. You get
Right.
whatever they bring you.
Right.
So all of a sudden I'm like, I'm free to have whatever I want. So I just went hog wild. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, the problem with the store concept is inflation has made that pretty much impossible.
I
So
know, actually,
we're gonna have
the
to,
Dollar Tree just went up to $1.25 tree, I think, something like that.
yeah, we're gonna have to reopen as the $5 store.
Hmm.
So, um, well, very good. Yeah, that was a beautiful Victorian that you had there on Main Street in Bellevue.
It was. I should have never
So,
sold it. It was COVID that made me sell it. I was so unhappy. I just thought I had to do something, so I sold my house.
so this
It was stupid.
COVID thing. So this whole trip to Thailand that we leave on Tuesday night, we'd actually bought this. We'd actually bought this trip 7 years ago. We were going to this fairly new company, at least I think it was new, Intertrips, based out of somewhere in LA. They put together trips to Asia, and they were very cost effective, very very affordable. Now they're doing trips all over the world, but I think when we first hooked up with them, they were just doing trips to Asia. So because they were fairly new, I think they were doing a really good special on a trip to China, and it was like a 10 or 12 day trip to China for $800, and that
Wow.
included a flight from LA, flights within the country, visit to the Great Wall, all your night stays, maybe one meal a day. I don't remember what at all, but it was just like this amazing deal. We would all have to, some of the kids would have to get passports, whatever. So by the time you add it all up, it was probably going to be more like 1,000. But we spent like $6,500 and we made 8 reservations. And wouldn't you know it, we were supposed to go on that trip in March of 2000. We
Of
bought it.
course.
We bought it like the year before. We were supposed to go on that trip. So we're watching the whole COVID thing unfold in February or whenever that was. I guess, when did we first start hearing about that? I don't know. But the moment
Well, I
we
can tell
first,
you because I was actually directing a play at the time, Singing in the Rain Junior. And we were supposed to perform the third week in March. And the second week in March is when they shut everything down. And that was, I already had all the costumes done, the set was done, pretty much everything had been taught. And they shut us down, and they never got to do that play. And it was just such a disappointment. So it was early March when they started talking about shutting us down. And then it was like mid March when they actually did it.
right. But I think even in February, there was some knowledge that there was some stuff
Something
going
coming.
down.
Yeah.
And it was kind of isolated in China at that point. But we were already thinking, oh no, this doesn't sound good. And then, of
No.
course, it wasn't long after that before Intertrips got a hold of us and said, hey, this isn't going to happen. This is a non-refundable trip, of course, but we will give you credit towards some future trip.
Ah,
So they have been actually really good about reminding us on almost a quarterly, at least a couple times a year, hey, you've got this credit. We want to get you booked for a trip. Have you considered going here? And over the last 5 years, it just hasn't worked out, and so finally we are using our credit, our $6,500 credit, to make this trip to Thailand. So this trip to Thailand was paid for 7 years ago, and we're just trying to get this off their books so that they can leave us alone and we can get our money's worth that we paid for. So that's how we end up going to Thailand for spring break here. And Kenny is pretty excited about this trip, and we are too.
And you're leaving soon, right?
We leave Tuesday night. Yeah, we leave
Wow,
Tuesday
that'll be
night,
so fun.
fly to LA late, and then we get on a midnight plane out of LA to Taiwan, and then we get on a plane in Taiwan and go to Bangkok. So, I was when I was in a boy. How about this? When I was a boy there at Thompson School, I think this was second grade. I think I said third grade to somebody earlier today, but when I was in second grade there, we had social studies, and in the social studies, one of the assignments I actually read was about Thailand, and they had these pictures of Thailand, and it was where they had houses on stilts, and they had to take little canoes, boats, whatever, between their houses and between shopping. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. I mean, we're out here living on a farm surrounded by land, and these people are cruising around in their boats, and I thought someday I want to go to Thailand and see what that's all about. Now, I'm sure in most places in Thailand, that's not how they live, and I probably won't get to see the place where they do that, but I am finally getting to make that second grade dream come true by going to Thailand. So there's that.
Very cool.
Well, hey, let's jump in and talk about this family here. I'm going to pull up a picture here just for a point of reference. This guy here is Nis Thomas Hansen, and we are going to be talking about his parents and his siblings. So that's where we're going. We don't have pictures of anybody further back here. Maybe those pictures are out there, but we don't have them. So his dad was named Karsten Sanke Hansen, and let's bring up the map here and look at where this guy comes from. All right, here we are. So Cheryl and I are now small, and the map is large. So Karsten grew up in Lek, which is also where Nis Thomas was born and grew up. So this is kind of the Hansen family stomping grounds here, Cheryl, is in Lek, what is now a part of Germany, but at that time was part of Denmark.
Okay, gotcha.
And his wife, Maria Thompson, it's Thompson without a P. Thompson.
So just Thompson.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
P.
Yep.
And so she grew up in Suderlugum. I don't know. My German friends could probably help me with that one, but she grew up, and I actually think that is right here. I should have had the map blown up bigger. Well, actually, I've got it up here, and it's highlighting this area. So maybe this is it right here. So somehow this boy from Lek hooked up with this girl named Maria from Suderlugum, and they got hooked up and got married. Now, what's interesting about this, and I would love to understand the story about this, but he was born December 27th, let's try this. December 27th, 1843. Let me get back to my screen. There's an echo here for some reason.
I can't hear it.
Well, that was their marriage, was 1843. He was born March 21st, 1823, and she was born August 28th, 1816. That is 7 years. She was 7 years older than him, if these dates are accurate, and there's no reason to think they aren't. So isn't that an interesting story?
Yeah.
And they got married in 1843. So that means he was 20 years old when he married somebody that was 27. So
well, Kim and Dean were kind of like that. My friend Kim, she was 30 and he was 25 when they married.
Right. So what was that love story all about? How does a 27-year-old gal, was he traveling up to her neck of the woods and went into the dollar store there, and she was there working at the counter, and I mean,
you
what
think
was
about
this?
that date? That's Napoleonic times in over in
Well,
Europe. I mean, that's just crazy.
He served both of Nis Thomas Hansen's, what am I saying here? Nis Thomas Hansen's father and Ellen Christina's father both served under Napoleon.
Whoa, that's
Both served.
amazing.
So this guy served under Napoleon. That's in the history. In fact, I think
And they managed to live through it, huh?
I think we'll touch on that when we get into this. And that's why when Nis Thomas was faced with Nis Thomas spent 2 years in the
Oh,
Danish
right.
army, and then when Germany came along and said, "Hey, you either serve or leave," he was like, "I'm out of here."
Yeah.
He
That's an easy choice.
he'd had enough stories from those experiences. He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get out of here." U.S. is looking pretty good at this point. But
Right.
what was this love story? Wouldn't that be so fascinating to know how these two fell in love and how they met each other and how Maria ended up with a young man like Karsten?
Yeah.
So where is that story? You know,
I mean, that
obviously
would
it's
be a pretty big maturity gap if you think about a 20-year-old dude and almost a 30-year-old lady.
yeah, 27-year-old lady. So
Yeah.
was she like his teacher in high school? And
And then he had a
you
crush
know,
on her.
and and somehow they hooked this up and like what was the story? Because there's a story there.
Right.
Now the interesting thing about him is he died 1877. So he died, excuse me, 44 years old. He
Wow.
died 44, but she lived until 1893, which
Almost a century.
1860, 93 minus 16, that seems like 77. So she died at age 77. But after he died, she came over to Ohio and hung out with her
Oh,
children
that's
in the Port
right.
Clinton area, and she is buried in Port Clinton.
That's so cool.
So she is in a graveyard there in Port Clinton,
Huh.
and it's your assignment to get up there and find her.
All right. I'll see what I
And
can do. You have to send me
and
your name.
I think you could go on, graveyards.com or whatever and maybe even see her gravestone on there, but it wouldn't be that hard to find her. And next
Yeah.
time I'm back in that neck of the woods, I certainly want to go do that because that is Nis Thomas Hansen's mother that's buried
Right.
there.
Yeah.
So pretty cool stuff. And it's amazing that we lived there that whole time and never knew that. Uh,
So Nis Thomas and his wife are buried in that Bellevue Cemetery.
yes, yes, they are.
Okay. That's right next to my storage unit at Mad River Storage. Every
Okay,
time I go to my storage unit, I see that graveyard.
right, yeah. Okay, so so we're going to jump in here and do some reading, and we'll stop on occasion and chat. So the return to the family. So grandfather Nis Thomas Hansen was born September 15th, 1848, in Schleswig, then at Providence of Denmark, and it was actually the city of Lech, but the area of Schleswig. He had 3 sisters and 2 brothers. The oldest sister was Mary Margaret. Now, I'm going to read what Nora has here, but then I'm going to go back and look at the actual family tree and tell you that one or the other is not accurate. And I'm going to tell you that I think the family tree is the accurate one. Nora's doing the best she can to remember things,
Yeah,
but
she was probably about 75 when mom interviewed her.
but um, but I think she had some inaccuracies. So just know that update is coming. The older sister was Mary Margaret. She had a son, Christ or Christian, who was born out of wedlock. Oh, naughty, naughty Mary. Okay, so I believe his father was already a married man. So Christ was raised by his grandmother and went by the name of Hansen. He was completely disowned by his mother and her family. What a nice way to deal with
Yeah.
that one. Her
Jeez.
children and grandchildren were raised without knowledge of his existence.
Whoa.
So he came to the U.S., I believe, at age 12. He lived in Sandusky, Ohio, most of his life. He had a very large family. So here is this relation of ours,
That's crazy. We
lived
could have
in
relatives up in Sandusky.
Sandusky, had a very large family. Mary
Huh.
Margaret later married a man named Hunding. She never came to the U.S. She had 2 children who came to the U.S. So Mary and this husband Hunding stayed in Denmark, but she had 2 children who came to the U.S., including a son which she also named Christ. And so his name was Christian Hunding, and he lived in or around Chicago. And Nora says, I think he had children. I also think that father, meaning John Hansen, visited him in 1933 when he attended the World's Fair. So our great grandfather John Hansen went to the World's Fair in Chicago,
So it would have been a cousin?
and this would have been Now you're stretching my brain.
Sorry.
This would have been a cousin. Yes, this would have
Yeah.
been a
Okay.
cousin. So yeah, and as you read through this, she bounces around so much. It's hard to like you'd have to do a map of who we're talking about in order to keep track of this sometimes. But okay, so he was at the World Fair, which that was a huge event, and what a cool thing to think that your great grandpa was there. The second child, Margaret Hunding Jessen, also lived in Chicago. Her husband's name was John. He was a cousin of the Knutson family who lived in Bellevue, Ohio.
Hmm.
They, John Jessens, had several children, including two sets of twins. One twin, Lloyd Jessen, became a doctor. He interned at Riverside Hospital in Toledo, and then sitting there,
Probably
and
not.
maybe knowing that mom was coming, she spent a little time doing a little research. I don't know.
A lot
Okay,
of
so
time,
next,
these ladies, they communicated with a lot of family members. They'd send out cards, and I mean, it was just that was just their life's work, really.
right? They sent letters back and forth
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff for sure. Um, okay, so next in line was brother Karsten. Now the family search will show that Karsten is actually the oldest, but she's saying next in line was brother Karsten, who owned a peach farm on Catawba Island. So how
Whoa,
wild is that? So this is Miss
that's
Thomas
crazy.
Hanson's
Like I did
older brother.
census work out on Catawba Island, and those peaches are still a big deal.
Yeah. So brother Karsten owned a peach farm on Catawba Island. This is Miss Thomas's older brother. He also had a large vineyard there and made wine commercially. He
Yep.
became quite wealthy. This is Nora speaking. He became
Yeah.
quite wealthy. He didn't bother to leave any behind for us. That is Steve. That is Steve speaking. Um, he says, "I can recall visiting there when I was quite young." So this is Nora going out to Catawba Island.
Yeah.
Then she says this. Then he became an alcoholic, as did his only son. They lost all as a result of this.
Oh no.
There were two children. Anna, the second, was married to John Liskey. I have seen Chris Liskey
I
on these
say that name
lives,
sounds familiar.
and I am friends with his sister Dana and younger brother Troy Liskey on
Oh, Troy.
Facebook.
Yeah. Duh.
But I have seen Chris catch my lives occasionally, so it'll be interesting to see if he catches this one. Now I don't know that
If we're
there is
related.
any direct relationship here, but it's quite possible.
Yeah.
But he says the Liskeys lived many years in Port Clinton, and then they moved to Cleveland. They had at least six girls. I'm sorry, they had at least six children, four girls and at least two boys. I think the girls' names were Alvina, Dorothy, Irene, and Helena. I don't recall the boys' names. Irene was a little older than I. She married Alan Voigt or Voth and moved to Fremont. However, I have lost track of her since then. Anna Hansen Liskey died. So now we're talking about the mom again of these four girls that she just mentioned. Anna Hansen Liskey died while the children were small. I think they were still living in Port Clinton when this occurred. Their father kept them all together and raised them by himself. He never remarried. He often visited.
Aw.
He often visited us in later years. But yeah, you think about all the potential people in the area up there that we could be related to.
Yeah,
And,
that's
and
crazy.
Karsten's son Charles. So now we're talking about Miss Thomas Hansen's brother son. So this is a nephew. His
Okay.
son Charles had four sons and a daughter. He became an alcoholic at an early age while living at home on Catawba Island. Now I think
Well,
she's
it's
already,
just being out there on Catawba with all that wine.
yeah,
That's the problem.
yeah. Charles married a very fine but poor girl. She helped him to overcome his drinking problem. They were very poor but raised four fine boys and a girl. They moved to Fremont and then on to Sylvania. Their sons were Leonard, Lawrence, Burdell, and Wilbur Hanson. So Leonard, Lawrence, Burdell, and Wilbur. There's a group of boys for you. Um, their youngest was Mary Hanson Cruz. All lived around Toledo. Burdell died from cancer as a young man in the late 1940s. The next sister of grandfather Miss Thomas Hanson was Christina Hanson Karstensen. They lived in Port Clinton, where they ran what might be called a hostelry. It included a long barn-like building which was open at one end or side. Travelers would drive in with their horses, which were stabled in a livery stable, while their wagons or carriages were sheltered in the barn. There was a saloon and a lunchroom included. Instead of several tables, there was one long table where the travelers were served. A great many fur traders from southern Canada would drive across the ice in winter to sell their furs to buyers who came in from many U.S. cities. Their inn was a well-known and popular place. Our father, Laus Jens, made his home there for about 6 years after coming into the U.S. So I knew that story about how he had hung out with
Right.
relatives
And how he had to
while
clean up the cigarettes and all the nasty.
yeah, so he said right here, he often had to clean the spittins and the floors from the customers who had upset stomachs after imbibing too freely. That was one of the reasons why he became a teetotaler himself. His uncle, who owned and operated the place, didn't drink either. This uncle and aunt were very good to our father. In fact, Dad actually seemed to feel closer to them than to his own parents, and resented it when he was taken home to work on the farm. You can imagine that hanging out in Port Clinton with all the activity there. I mean, it'd be kind of like being at Cedar Point,
Oh, it'd be
and
so fun, especially
and
as a young man. And then all of
and
a
then
sudden you're back on the farm doing
yeah, and
chores.
then you're back on the farm doing chores.
Yep.
Would you rather hang out in the farm and bale hay, or would you rather be up at Cedar Point for the summer?
With all the
So
cute girls.
with all the cute girls. So yeah, John
Yep.
resented I'm sure that was a part of the equation. I hadn't thought about that, but certainly would have been for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, while living in Port Clinton, let me get rid of the map here and blow myself back up again because I know people want to see me. Okay, there I am.
You do
Well,
look very handsome today with your tie and
yeah, and
everything.
I got this new colorful tie on that I bought that I really like. I like this tie. It kind of goes with the Footloose poster. Um, Let me pause here and just tell you something about this Footloose poster. We're not going to talk about the history of the whole Footloose thing, but I'll just tell you this. I started this new Facebook channel, and it's called Rebuke the Devourer, and I'm going to do my health thing through there, my whole and try to build that up as a professional sales site. And I put a couple lives out there, and it had this picture in it, and I started getting these messages from the automatic um, system from Meta saying, "Hey, you've got some kind of a copyright issue, and you have to deal." They didn't tell me what the issue was, but the only thing I can think is
Your
like
poster.
I can't have that Footloose poster as a part of my live on my professional site.
Right.
Apparently, it's not an issue here on my personal site, but if I want to push this stuff out on a professional site where you're promoting and selling things, the Footloose poster has to go. Or what I can do is just kind of do one of
Yeah,
these
I
or
was gonna say
something.
just sit a different angle or something. Your
Yeah,
globe's okay.
so that's probably what I'm going to end up having to do because I don't want to take it off the wall.
Right.
But I thought that was really weird, and I'm sure it's not like a person who's actually looking at it. It's literally just Meta's
It's a
system
computer. It's an AI.
is saying, "Hey, there's something copyrighted on the wall there. Tell that boy to get it off."
Right.
So, all right. So back to the story here. While living in Port Clinton, Dad attended. What did Dad attend? Dad attended a Lutheran parochial school, which was taught by a second cousin, Paul or Carl Jorgensen. I'm really good at combining words and names sometimes. Instead of Paul or Carl, I came up with I can't even say it again. The Karstensons. You got to catch it the first time because sometimes it just goes. The, the Karstensons had 5 children. Stephanie, I think, was the oldest.
These are all Danish names. Jorgensen, Karstensen.
Yeah,
So
she was a nurse for a lady who was bedfast for quite some time. This is an interesting story. After the lady died, Stephanie married the husband. They moved
whoa.
they moved to California but had no children. I think Mary was next. She never married and also moved to California. Then I think came Andrew, a son. He married but had no children. He lived in Cleveland. Next was Anna, who I think was married and had 2 children. I do not know any of their names. They also moved to California, as did Amanda, the last child, who also never married. So I don't know what was going on here that it's like
They
all of a
didn't seem
sudden,
interested in having a family, did they?
yeah. And you wonder, well, like, was that just part of the times or what was causing these people to say, let's get married, but let's not have kids? I
Don't
mean,
need children.
this is the 1900s. Like,
Yeah, it really seems like that shouldn't be the case. So maybe they just had a bad experience in their own home and didn't want to
yeah,
deal with it.
I don't know, but a bunch of so we have. I would like to say we have a bunch of relatives in California but none of them had kids.
Right. So we really don't.
So maybe we don't. All right. So grandfather Nis Thomas was next in line, followed by his sister Sophia Hansen Stinson. She married. Now we've already talked about Nis Thomas's family, so we don't need to go there, and neither does Nora right now. She married John Stinson. They lived in Port Clinton, where they owned and operated 2 large resort hotels, the Lake House and the Island House. Now I went out and did a little searching on this, and here's what I found. This place right here is called the Island House.
Oh my
It's
gosh,
where-
I almost bought a little condo in there a couple years ago. It wasn't very expensive.
So this place is called the Island House. If you look up here at the top, there's a date up there, and I haven't zoomed in enough to see, but it's 18 something. So this is the house. This is the property that these folks owned. That Nis Thomas.
I wonder if they built it or they just bought it.
Owned. Well, it would seem time-wise that they built it,
Wow, that's amazing.
but I don't know that. But it'd be interesting to go back and look at the history there in Port Clinton and see if you can find who did build it. And if it
Right.
was a Stinson, a John Stinson,
And it's our
then-
relatives.
then it was our relatives.
Yeah.
So Charles Stinson, let's see. They had 4 children. One of the children, Charles Stinson, owned and operated a bus company which operated out of Port Clinton. He never married. Harry Stinson was married but had no children. He was in business in Port Clinton. Otto J. was also married. He married Marie Starkloff. They had no children. What is going on with these people?
Heck, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Otto J. later owned and operated the Island House for 44 years. So after John and Sophia wanted to get out of it, their son Otto bought it from them and operated it for 44 years. So I don't know where that puts that time-wise, but I think that puts him well into
Well, into the
1920s or whatever, something like that.
yeah.
So the next daughter, Mary Stinson, was married at an early age to a man named Cousineau. He was Catholic. They had a daughter named Margaret. She was raised Catholic. Mary divorced Cousineau. Mary's got quite the little interesting story here. She later married a man named Zimmerman. I don't know if he died or if she also divorced him. She later married a man by the name of Walter Wagoner. She inherited and operated the lake house for many years.
Did you find the lake house when you were looking?
I did not find the lake house. So somehow she ended up with the lake house from her parents, and she inherited and operated that. So here you have brother and sister operating these 2 different properties up in Port Clinton.
Competing.
We have a ton of history within the family, with the extended family there in Port Clinton. It's really quite amazing. And of course, we never knew that growing up. That we had all these connections. So
Yeah. I mean, Martin and I lived in Oak Harbor, so we were in Port Clinton a lot, when we lived up there just recently.
yeah. She was very sophisticated and didn't care to acknowledge her relationship to her poor Hanson cousins.
Oh,
You can feel Nora, maybe a little emotion there or something. I don't know.
yeah.
Mary's daughter, Margaret Cousineau, married and had a daughter who married an heir. Okay, so this is really interesting. So Mary's daughter, this is the one who got divorced 3 times or whatever, and ran the lake house. Mary's daughter, Margaret Cousineau, got married, and they had a daughter, and that daughter married an heir to the Marshall Field Company in Chicago.
Whoa. Well, that's moving on up.
Yeah. So I don't know how we missed out on that inheritance.
I know, right? What the heck? What are we doing wrong?
Yeah, something. Well, we are in line for mom's inheritance, and that's what we've got going on right here tonight. So, John Stinson, Mary's father, was quite a gambler at one time. Most of his gambling was done playing cards. So we got a little Las Vegas in us.
There we go.
At least in the extended family. The youngest son of the family, in which Nis Thomas was raised, was John Hanson. Now, it was actually like a loused, I think it was a Jens.
Klaus Jens or whatever they call them.
But now he's called John. I believe his wife's name was Mary also. They lived in Galion, Ohio. Crazy enough.
Oh, that's weird.
They lived in Galion, but had no children. So what were they using for birth control back in the day? Like, how did they manage not to
I don't know. I just wonder if it's like a
children?
genetic thing where they just couldn't have children.
I can't. You look at like obviously Nis Thomas and Ellen Christina had 13
Yeah.
children,
Obviously, there
five
was
of
nothing wrong with them.
five of whom died at birth. Two sets of twins died, and one single died at birth.
And
Karsten,
then,
the man we're talking about tonight, he and Maria had 7 children. The generation above that had 7 children. And then you look at Nis Thomas, our great grandfather John Hanson. There was 7 children in that family. The Art Hanson children, there was only four. Our
right.
our father Robert C. fathered 8 children, and I have 10. So
We're
there's
going
not.
back the other direction.
It's not like the fish can't swim. I guess
Right.
that's all I would say. But
Yep.
I don't know. Uh,
Yeah. Whatever they were using for birth control, that was pretty amazing stuff.
right. Okay, so let's see here. I lost my. Okay, all of the older brothers and sisters of Miss Thomas came to the United States before he did, before grandfather did. However, I don't know when John came, so she doesn't know when Miss
The
Thomas'
younger brother.
younger brother came over.
Gotcha.
That is as far as we go with this story. Now we're back into Ellen, Christina, and John. So, but some really interesting stuff there about how they owned these properties up in Port Clinton,
Yeah.
about how they all most of them got married, but a lot of them didn't have any children. A lot of them did tap into some wealth. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're marrying the heir to the Marshall Field Company, I've shopped at Marshall Fields before, not like regularly, but
Well, yeah, because it's too fancy.
but and we have a lot of ties to Chicago, and we
Yeah.
have ties out into California.
And we have
So a
ties in
lot,
Chicago with Grandma May's relatives too. A lot of them, like George and
yeah,
Grandma
you're right.
May's sister, she lived in Chicago.
But it's interesting. This one family lived in Gallion, and
Yeah,
of course our Cunningham relatives are from
from
Gallion.
Gallion. They might have even known each other. Gallion's not a very big town.
Right? Yeah, they may have and not realized the connection. So if
But
we look at the Karsten Sanke Hansen family, it actually goes. There's 7 children. Karsten is the oldest, and the son is with a C, and he was born in 1842, died in 1919. Anna Christina was the second child, 1845 to 1883. So she only lived 38 years.
yeah, she wasn't
And
very
then
old.
and then our grandfather Nis Thomas was 1848 to 1927, buried in Bellevue Cemetery. Christina, younger sister, Christina Margaretha Hansen, 1851 to 1901, only 50 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Hans Jens, 1854 to 1859. Oh, this is interesting. Okay,
4
so
years old.
he only lived 5 years. They
Wow.
lost this boy when he was 5 years old. And
That's
then
sad.
Anna Sophia Katharina Hansen, 1858 to 1927. She died the same year that Miss Thomas did. But here's the interesting one. Another boy was born 1865. This was 6 years after the earlier boy had died. They gave him the same name,
Oh,
Hans Jens Hansen.
well, why
And he
not?
lived to 1923. So Nis Thomas's younger brother, Hans Jens, died 4 years before he did, even though he was almost 20 years older than him.
Yeah.
So there were 7 children in that family. Nora never knew about the boy that had died.
Wow.
That's the piece of information. She had the children out of order,
Uh-huh.
and she didn't know about the boy who had died. So apparently that was not common family knowledge.
Well, it's
It
kind
was
of
like
cool that they took his name and
spoken
gave
about.
it to the next one, basically.
Yeah. So, and then let's just let's get this wrapped up pretty quickly here, but let's talk about the generation before that. I don't have any information, so I'm just going to mention this. His father's name was also Karsten. This is Karsten Hansen's. His father was Karsten, and his mother's name was Christina Henningsen, and they had 6 children. They had Anna Margaretha Hansen, who died. Then they had a girl, Ingeborg Hansen, and she died. And then they had Anna Katharina again, or they had another girl named Anna, but they middle named Katharina, and she well, I guess I'm not clear on whether she lived or not. And then Karsten, who was our great whatever, and then another girl named Christina, and then Ingwert.
Well, they
So
like that Christina name, don't they?
this is interesting because this Ingwert, the youngest, died when she was 4. This Christina died when she was 4. Like Karsten was the only one who appears to have escaped this family alive as a child.
That's crazy.
So I don't know
What
if
the
these
heck were they dying from? An illness, maybe?
yeah, I don't know. Either they
Unless they were
just
sending their children into the mines or something.
they didn't have very good well, these were babies. They didn't
Yeah.
have very good parenting skills. They were dying of disease. They only had one of those 6 children that
That lived to
survived,
adulthood.
that it lived to adulthood.
That's
So,
crazy. Maybe they were
yeah.
abusive.
well, I don't think so, but we don't know.
Oh,
So
we can
that's
have a family soap opera.
so that is far back as we go on the Hanson's lines, but we have other lines that go back. Well, we have some lines that go back to Adam, but we don't know how accurate those lines are. But we do have some lines that go back to Adam. If anybody wants to take that journey some night. So, I think with that we'll wrap up. Tomorrow night is the exciting Cheryl's boyfriend's countdown calendar. Do you have that all figured out for tomorrow night?
Well, I think I'm going to have to do the 2 that I was talking to you about last week
Okay.
that are just kind of a small part. I was thinking today there are some of these names on this list that are a pretty big part of my life, like the one we were talking about earlier today, you and I.
Right.
And then there's some names on the list that, I might have seen for a month.
Right.
He's my boyfriend, but it was for a month. So I don't have a ton of information about those guys. So that's why I'm going to do 2 together tomorrow night.
So, Cheryl, there was I dated about 12 girls, but I spent and the longest relationship I had was like 10 weeks, and that was Christy Sutherland in 8th grade. A lot of my relationships were 2 weeks, some were 6 weeks, but
See, that's my
I spent the most of my high school and junior high career not attached. And even in my young adulthood, I did some dating, but it was never very long. You know, I just I didn't have those type of relationships. But I honestly cannot remember a time when you did not have a relationship. Like from 4th grade on, I don't remember a time when you were not attached to at least one boy, and usually 2 or 3.
Oh my gosh, that's so
Do you
funny.
remember a time when you weren't?
Well, it was
I mean,
maybe
maybe there was a half hour between boyfriends, or
I'm
maybe
trying to
even
think, like when I first went to Rick's college, I don't think I was attached because I had broken up with Dobie over the summer. And yeah, I didn't really have anybody when I first got to Rick's, although it didn't take me long, I have to admit.
right.
Yeah.
So
There was a guy taking me home to Montana within a few months and wanted me to marry him, but I guess we'll talk
so
about him another night.
anyway, you seem to be much more attractive and much more uh people attached onto you for much longer than the girls were attaching onto me.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hung in there and things worked out. So all right. Well, hey, everyone have a great night. Thanks for hanging in there. 43 minutes tonight. That's more than we like to do, but we had a lot of fun here, and we'll look forward to some good things tomorrow night.
Good night.
Yeah. Take care. You can stay on here.